Hey Libra, welcome to Catalyst Energies and welcome to your weekly astrology forecast. This is for the week of December 26th, 2021 to our very first new moon of 2022, which is going to be on the 2nd of January and is going to be in Capricorn. So Libra, the thing is that the astrology of the weekend of the 24th and 25th and even into the 26th is so astounding that the focus has really been on the weekend for these reports. And so we will certainly look at the main themes of the week and of course the new moon to really start kind of preparing ourselves for the intentions that we want to set, not just for the lunar cycle, but it really does kind of give us an opportunity to set some intentions for the, throughout the calendar year as well. So it's important that we're taking some time to really unpack these weekend transits, the 24th, 25th, and 26th, because they are just remarkable. So Libra. Wow. We're gonna start with the 24th. I have been recording all day. I am marathoning this, so if you just forgive maybe scratchy voice or having to take a drink in the middle of the recording, I usually don't do that, but it's just a necessity. I'm really trying to not work tomorrow, and I want to get these recordings all taken care of right now. And I am just on. I'm totally on a roll right now, but my voice is kind of shot. So if you humor me in terms of taking a drink every once in a while, and I'll try to move the microphone out of the way. Because I know it's not exactly the most pleasant sound to have somebody drinking and swallowing when you're listening to their voice in a microphone. Anyway, so Libra, let's just get right into it, because this is there's just too much. There's just so much. So the 24th, there are two major transits that are happening on the 24th, very early in the morning, late evening on the 23rd. The first one is that the moon at 30 degrees Leo is in an opposition to Jupiter at 30 degrees of Aquarius. And Jupiter is going to move into Pisces this week on the 28th, and it'll be a huge sigh of relief. And for the Libra person, this is going to enter the realm of your daily habits, your routines, your works, your service, what you do to reconstitute and purify yourself, your training, right? Your discipline, right? Your practices, all of the things that you do on the daily, your self-care. This is often brought about by some sort of personal crisis because it kind of forces us to get our shit together. So Jupiter moving into this area and kind of breathing a sigh of relief in some ways, and really finding limitless potential in a way that Jupiter absolutely loves, because it's just expansive and larger than life. It is going to provide so many of the resources that are needed for the Libra person when it comes to that type of daily work. Jupiter will manage and advocate and be a benefactor in the search for real meaning, and certainly the search for real meaning and how it can be executed in a daily practice of some kind. So before that happens, though, it's this opposition with the moon and Jupiter that is very substantial. The moon in the last degree of Leo is representing a deep sensitivity that we're all having to a part of ourselves that can no longer be contained. It must be shared. It must be expressed. It must be released from our own hearts, right? Because this is what Leo truly represents. And for the Libra person, this has to do with the social order in general, the society that you're part of, your larger social networks. And so Libra, you are, the moon has been moving through Leo the last couple of days anyway, and you can really feel this sensitivity and drive, and even a deep feeling of the need to really express our sovereign nature and our sovereign, authentic nature for Libra in the context of the social order, right? You really combust and release the full voice as a Libra in the social context. And so this deep sensitivity that is stirred and demands to be released, it can't be contained anymore within your larger social circles. It may not be expressed necessarily, but it's going to be very much felt about the social order as a whole and your relationship to it. Now, what is balancing this out so that it doesn't get fully immersed in the feels of this intense combustion, right? The Kundalini rises and it awakens and there's no stopping it, right? But Jupiter is, during its time in Aquarius, has been keeping us on track, right? Keeping us in line with the singular laser focus of Aquarius. And it is not the most favorite position for a planet like Jupiter that wants to expand endlessly, because there is nothing to expand into. It's just a point of light that Aquarius truly represents. But this opposition is balancing out the feeling, the deep urge and the feeling and the sensitivity to all of the work that has been done in the realm of your sovereign expression, right? In terms of staying on task, staying aligned with the highest order of things, to be connected to the collective as a whole, to be innovative and to be futuristic and to be even revolutionary. But Jupiter has been throwing the lightning bolts whenever we get off track, right? It has been disciplining us and advocating us and bestowing upon us the tough love that we may need in those moments, or certainly the very rapid reorientation that Aquarius represents, because it's very, very much not rooted in the material, right? So things can change because it's outside of time and space, right? Aquarius and Pisces are something more than materialism. So Jupiter in the fifth house, I mean, sometimes Jupiter in this area can get so expansive that you really start to feel like you can only be yourself when you are surrounded by like an entourage, or that the meaning of your own joy and passion is derived from being in some sort of leadership or guidance position. So that's one way, Libra, that Jupiter may have been really, a benefactor, which, is to show how much that this is the case, and to show that the search for meaning and the expansion into understanding, especially into your authentic voice, is very much related to the meaning that you have in relationship to other and the larger social whole, right? Because Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces. So when Jupiter moves into Pisces, Libra, and really is able to just release itself into the everyday activity and bestow all of the gifts into that realm, it is going to be a fully realized experience on a day-to-day basis of a deep search for meaning that came, I think, ultimately from the tension created with the moon and the deep sensitivity to some aspect of the social order and societal expectations that cannot be suppressed anymore for Libra. So along with this is Saturn is also in the fifth house and is going to square Uranus also on the 24th, and Uranus is in the eighth house. So for the Libra person, there's not been a lot of stability in the realm of what you're producing in your shared relationships, right? In your shared experiences, your cooperation, your communion with relationships and clients and business partners and just society in general. Whatever your binding agreements are that the seventh house represents, it's the resources of those binding agreements or relationships are felt in the eighth house. And there's so much variability here because of Uranus, right? It's always turning things sideways. And we're just scrolling through and window shopping realities. I've been saying it on every single video. And for the Libra person, it is really hard to pin some things down in the realm of the shadow when Uranus is not real is very trickster-like in this area, and in a retrograde. At least it's internalized right now. This will be a different story when Uranus stations retrograde. This disruptive pattern in the realm of the shadow and in the realm of the shared resources of our binding agreements is going to be experienced way more dramatically, I think, for everybody. But there is in the 8th house, this is certainly going to bring about some sort of psychological crisis in terms of trust and in terms of what it means to have intimacy and what it means to be betrayed and what it means to face your own shadow. And again, we've just kind of been window shopping realities here and haven't really settled in on the deep feeling of the power dynamics in all of our relationships, well, for Libra especially. And so the square to Saturn, these guys are always at it. They don't get along at all. They represent completely different things. Saturn is materialism. That's what it is. Saturn is materialism, and Uranus is something more than, it's outside of time and space. It is something that is very real, but not material, not measurable in a material way in classical physics. It's the energy that moves through the quantum field. And it is the people, and a pattern of interconnecting nodes of sovereign energy and sovereign individuals that makes up the collective, which is Aquarius. So in the 5th house, with also Saturn here, it's really brought a lot of stability and a sense of responsibility, but also too can really weigh down an area of the chart that has a lot to do with having fun and finding joy and optimism and passion. And so for the Libra person, Jupiter kind of helped. Some people were feeling the struggle with Jupiter and Saturn. I definitely have not. I have definitely felt that they were working on similar territory with different assets. And so now that Jupiter is going to start moving out of the 5th house, and it's primarily for now just Saturn in this area, it really can be very dense and kind of be a wet blanket in terms of taking risks, but it also can give you a sense of power and responsibility and real authority in this realm of you are certainly, as a Libra person, this can represent the authority of your own authentic voice and sovereign voice, to the point that there's no really shaking it. This is a backbone and a scaffolding in this area. The downside to this is that it can be so stifling as well. And with Uranus in the 8th house and the lack of variability here, when these two come together in a square, which is exact on the 24th and will be with us for a couple more days, I mean, if there is not the ability to adapt and to be flexible in terms of what constitutes your voice, what constitutes your expression and your passion and joy and how you have fun, right? Romance, taking social risks. If there is not some adaptability or certainly some flexibility there with this square to Uranus, there will be structural damage in this area. This is probably some of the, and I know that I'm on this marathon of recording and I'm very tired, but there tends to be a lot more lucidity in a sense. There tends to be more lucid, and when you're really, really tired and doing this kind of work, it also tends to be a lot more accurate because you don't have your mind, your frontal lobe and your mind. Your conscious mind is getting so tired that you are starting to access other parts of your brain to channel the information. So with Libra, this is probably, so far, this has been the toughest read of this square. And not that I'm struggling with it, that the Libra person might be really struggling with what this represents. Because if you are looking for stability in your business investments and your business returns, your profits, if you are looking for stability in terms of the power of your relationships in general, and that can be any kind of relationship. If you are looking for stability as opposed to shopping around like Uranus is encouraging us to do, you will try to find it in an area that is not meant to be so like, so heavily suppressed or so dense that you can't even take a risk. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's also keeping you very Libra, keeping you very grounded in your voice and in your expression and in taking social risks, so that you don't act out inappropriately with this window shopping of production and the resources that are created, what kind of life that is, right? You have to be very sure with yourself about who you are and what your voice is. And this square is really going to highlight this for Libra. And it's got to make sure that we are adaptable, because when they come together, if there's not any flexibility with Saturn whatsoever or any way to adapt to this, Uranus will find a way. And this is usually going to cause structural damage to Saturn wherever it is. And Libra, you don't want structural damage in the 5th house. You just had all this time with Jupiter there. Really giving a lot of meaning and resources towards the expression of who you really are. And Saturn is giving you a lot of confidence and stability here as well. And so you can allow the variability in the more occult, esoteric, subconscious realm to kind of to awaken, right? But if you don't allow that, Libra, again, I see for everybody that it will fracture the structural integrity of where Saturn is, and you don't want that in your 5th house. That sounds so like depressing, and it sounds so defeating. That's just the way that it feels. Now, the other thing, too, is that where Saturn is suggesting that everybody's exactly where they need to be, and including you, Libra. And so you may be investigating and traveling astrally, and things might turn sideways in terms of your the resources that you are sharing with those that you're in agreement with or in a relationship with, but you are still staying true to yourself because you acknowledge that everybody's where they need to be, and that you're not threatened by necessarily the possibly very rapid reorientation of the resources that you are able to produce with others. So this is on the 24th. So the 25th, we have Venus. Excuse me a minute. On the 24th and 25th, we have Venus and Pluto coming back for their second conjunction. This is in your 4th house. The Capricorn area is the 4th house for Libra. This is a very important area for you because this is where you draw your power from. This is where you feel you belong. This is home and family and your inner life, where you draw your power from. So Venus and Pluto together here for the second time. Something very powerful was brought to the attention of the Libra in terms of value and meaning and sensitivity to worth in the realm of home and family in your inner life. And so it may have been a little jarring at the first time, but now that Venus is in retrograde and has come back around and is meeting Pluto again, there is a much more mature and possibly intentional and conscious giving over or offering, because Venus is in this deep inventory mode and will continue the retrograde and then go direct again and meet Pluto again much later. And so right now, it's having this opportunity to go back over that really really impactful moment the first time and be like, well, we didn't quite get it all, so let's make sure that we do. And for the Libra person, again, it's in your inner life and your intimate life, your home life, and your home and family, and where you draw your emotional security from. That is also up for deep inventory and review, and there are things that are being offered up for transformation in this realm for the Libra person. Now, also on the 25th, Mars is in the third house. Excuse me. Mars is in the third house. In conjunction with Antares, the heart of the Scorpion, Archangel Uriel, the fire of God. Mars is going to be spitting truth through fire, straight up. And for the Libra person, this is going to be in your immediate environment. It's going to be in your communications. It's going to be in the way that you actually talk to people, how, your back and forth communications with people. It's going to spit truth right into your immediate environment, right into your mind, into all of the empirical data that you have been, working with the South Node here. And the meaning of all of it, and it's going to spit fiery truth right over to where Chiron is in your 7th house. So Libra, this is important because it's who you are in your relationships that's really, really suffering with Chiron in this area. And now that it's direct, it's going to be way more on the surface and way more noticeable and, less. We're not going to be able to avoid it as much by internalizing it. It's going to be expressing itself in us, in our relationships. It's going to come out more, these traumas, these inner child wounding, right? These victim narratives or savior narratives or shame and guilt for just being ourselves is going to start really rearing its ugly head in our binding relationships, in our commitments that we make in any type of relationship, business, domestic, romantic, spiritual, whatever. It's all about the binding of the contract that the 7th house represents. And so this is the big sticking point for Libra, because they can't be themselves because there are wounds that are imposed upon the Libra person that lead them to feeling ashamed and guilty for just being themselves, and also pulling out all of this anger and frustration about this as well, and ways to bypass it by healing other people or trying to heal other people, all these Chiron things for Libra being in the 7th house. But it's Mars in your communication, Mars in your immediate environment, the people you talk to on a regular basis, who's in your DMs, who's in your chats, who's in your text messaging or your emails, right? Any of these correspondences are 3rd house. Your commute to back and forth to work or whatever every day is the 3rd house. And it represents the function of the mind and cognitive functioning, empirical data, and what we think and what we know, what we think we know. And Mars is going to spit truth. It's going to be, it's going to sting. It's going to sting for everybody. For Libra, it's going to sting right in the words, right? And right in the mind. It's going to sting so bad. It's going to sting and spit truth. But that truth is going to go straight to Chiron in the 7th house. And it's either going to be a potent, tonic for healing, right? Or it's going to be venomous, and we will find ourselves, the Libra person in particular will find themselves reverting even deeper into their victim role or wounded healer role, or whatever it is that comes out as a result of Chiron in the 7th house. It's spitting the truth. Oh, it's going to sting so bad. And maybe not, but I mean, it seems pretty likely that on Christmas Day, and along with Venus in the 4th house with Capricorn, or with Pluto and Capricorn, it's going to be very intense. So on the 26th, what we're going to find here is that the moon will come into Libra, which is your 1st house, and the sun is also now in the 4th house. And so there's so much of this 4th house energy. You have Mercury here now that is really putting a lot of your mental activity into the inner life, like really consolidating a lot of ideas into a very grounded and rooted type of perspective, like really thinking about what it means to gather personal power, really considering where you are rooted and where you belong, and certainly where your loyalties lie, and being able to take a lot of details and making broad patterns out of them is something Mercury is really good at. And now the sun is here too, and this is going to be this interesting little inkling we're all going to have here, where a lot of our attention is going to be focused on the finishing of a cycle, right? We're gonna finish what we've started, and for the Libra person, it's really going to be in the realm of the inner life and the personal life and the home and family. So it's been going through massive transformation since Pluto came into Capricorn. And now it is coming to a head in a lot of ways, especially with Pluto really hovering around the return, the natal Pluto of the US, so the Pluto return, but also just in general, it's just massively transformative in the area where the Libra person is gathering their most personal power from. So while the attention may be focused primarily in this moment at the third quarter moon on finishing what's been started here, right? To make sure everything is stacked accordingly before crossing the threshold into a new cycle, because there is in fact a new cycle that is being initiated and transformed into because of Pluto. But we got to make sure that we have everything in line and checked out. The moon in the first house is going to be this first kind of like inkling here for the Libra person in particular, that in order for there to be change in who you are, there needs to also be this, there also needs to be this ability to visualize what you want to materialize as yourself. And you're starting to consider and feel into and be very sensitive to the need to do this. Now, this is going to be in a square to the sun. So as we can see down here, right, the sun will be in the fourth house. This is where it will be when the moon comes into Libra and comes into the square here. This is crisis of consciousness. So it's not that it's one or the other. It's both of them are existing at the same time in different realms of us at different ends of the spectrum. And again, squares, you just lean into them and you find where the discomfort is and you lean into that. And how do we put our attention actively on finishing what we started in terms of our where we have made our decision about where we're rooted, and the a feeling, maybe it's a subconscious feeling, maybe it's just very subtle, that we have to start visualizing the next cycle. And for Libra, it has very much to do about the actual identity of the Libra person, and being able to visualize what the Libra wants to materialize in terms of identity. And so those things are not mutually exclusive at all, but it will feel like a crisis in consciousness to exist in both of those places, and specifically to lean into the place where they meet, because that's where it's the most uncomfortable. But they don't have to, it's just a moment. It's just a moment of experience that it represents that we move through. And then from the new moon, when we get to from the third quarter moon, the moon's going to come into your fourth house, Libra, and this is where the new moon will be, is in your fourth house. Let it burn. Let it burn. There was a moment here where you acknowledged that there are loose ends that need to be tied up, that there needs to be a completion of what has been started. That's the responsible thing to do in Capricorn, in terms of what you have committed yourself to, your loyalty and your faithfulness, and where you're drawing your power from. And then with the new moon, it's a great opportunity to set some intentions around personal growth and development when it comes to letting it burn. Just let it burn away, and to acknowledge the transcendent power of fire as the agent of transmutation in a very material way. It's not idealistic. It's very much about the physical force of fire and what it represents. And so for the Libra person, this new moon is an opportunity to really honor the letting it burn, whatever it is, right? It's Maybe there's roots that need to be burned away. Maybe there are heritages and customs that need to be burnt away, maybe and purified. Maybe there are all kinds of ways that this can really manifest, but it has a lot to do with the realm of where you're drawing your power from. That it's changing, right? It's changing because Capricorn is changing, because Pluto has been moving through Capricorn. So where you're drawing your power from and your self-esteem and your characterization is changing, and it's this new moon that we can actually consciously initiate the purification process and invite it, right? So that's a really good way to be conscious of the creation process that can be activated with any new moon. So Libra, that is the week and the weekend and the week in a nutshell. So thank you for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. If you're interested in a reading or getting more information, or certainly supporting this work through Subscribestar, it's really important because for me to continue to provide this content at the level that I am, to gain a subscription base. And so if that's something that you feel called to do, you can find the link in the description box. You can also stick around to the end of the video and get more information. And certainly you can visit my website and get all the information you need. So Libra, have a great weekend. Whatever you decide to get into, however you celebrate, as long as it's peaceful and joyful and content, I think we're good. So take care of yourself, and we'll check back in on the next astrology forecast. Bye, Libra.